White people are so rude while walking down the street. And yes, I'm white, but I never noticed this pattern myself until I moved to a major city. They will take up the entire sidewalk and walk like they own the entire sidewalk. It could be one person, one white man, and he will not let you pass. He would rather shoulder check you into the street than yield even an inch of space. And it's weird because I obviously have noticed the entitlement among a lot of white people because I often call it out on my page, but it's a whole different level while walking around in the street. Like if you can't move over for a family, for a group of people, for a woman who's walking next to the road and you'd rather hit them, that's a serious issue. Like that's a true ego entitlement issue. And I know a lot of people of color have mentioned this because they've been like, yeah, we've known this, right? Because white people do this. But I just want to remind other people out there, like, stop being a dick. Like, scoot over. Is it going to actually kill you to move over half an inch? You don't own the sidewalk. Like, I know your ancestors are colonizers, but you don't own that. You don't own it. Move over.
I just want white people to have a place to live. Like, sure. There's no... The country's going to be minority white, and then a lot of people hate white people. Like, white people aren't, like, violent to that degree.
Yeah, I'm in my phone. Have you ever heard of postcard lynchings?
What?
Postcard lynchings.
No.
So all the way up into the 1960s, when black people got lynched, many people would take photos of those lynchings, and what they would do is they would put them on postcards and knickknacks, and people would spread them around. I won't show this on camera, but here's an example of what I'm talking about. This is called the dogwood tree.
Open the border right now.
These were knickknacks. So if you want to say white people weren't violent, can I read you the poem on the bottom of this postcard?
No, I know about slavery.
This isn't about... No. This isn't slavery.
Us.
No, 1908. This is 1908.
They turned us into soaps and lamps.
This is from 1908. This is long past slavery.
Well, I know.
This is the only branch of a dogwood tree, the emblem of white supremacy, a lesson taught in the pioneer school, that this is a land of the white man's rule. The red man once in an early day was told by the whites to mend his way. That, I can't say the word, the N-word, now, by eternal grace, must learn to stay in the N-word's place. In the sunny south, the land of the free, let the white supreme forever be. Let this be a warning to all N-words be, or they'll suffer the fate of the dogwood tree. And in it there is 5 black men hung. This is from 1910, and this actually is one of the most common ones. It circulated until 1960 and was sold in the South. So, yes, white people are violent too.
Well, we certainly can be, yeah.
I am so sick and tired of this chip that you're carrying on your shoulder. We have bent over backwards. We have done backflips to make you feel equal. And yet, we've done everything. Perfect example is in the federal government. If you and I get the exact same rating for a position, do you know what? You get it. And do you know why? Because you're black. Is that fair? Is that fair to me?
There is a woeful lack of understanding, not only in the black community, but really in the white community, of why black people are in the condition that we're in and why all of the efforts that whites have made and government has made to try to solve the problem in the way that government sees fit has not really worked. And blacks are still crying out for more and more and more. And I realize that this is an irritant to white people because you really don't understand. And it's not really your fault. It's not really your fault. You just don't understand. But I think if you gave yourself a chance to hear what happened to these black people that makes them as they are as an irritant to you and those who think you have done the best you could. And maybe you have, but I respectfully suggest to you that there's so much more that could be done, that should be done, and that must be done if America is to survive. Believe me.
Do you want to know why white people are racist? It's because Western society, and specifically English, I want to say Germany too, but US right now, obviously, is still the education system. It's the best of the best. It brainwashes kids at a very young age to do anything in the world. And it brainwashes innocent white people to be racist. And that's why we have crazy people out there. Like extreme hatred, and they're so right. They believe they are bringing Jesus to people, for God's sake. And Jesus is not even white. Like, it's crazy. Yeah, that's why. It's sad because we, as human beings, we don't have hate in our heart. We don't have that. We're not born with that. We are people. There's only one race, the human race.
Maybe. And it's not even the fact that I'm hating. It's the fact that society has literally brainwashed on to thinking that these white women who is trying to dress as exotic is literally imitating the image of a black woman. The same shit that y'all said that black women could not be. So now that you see a white woman doing it, they are now turning into comedy and entertainment to act like us over the misfortune and unfortune that we had to fucking endure in our lives. And that was a comedy, and it is something that intrigues people, and they think it is romantic, it is cute, it is sexy, it is a trend. What the fuck is going on? It's nobody seeing the shit that is happening. Do y'all not see how they're tricking your mind into thinking that this is okay and how this is really fucking dominating your brain? Like, I know I'm not the only one. Take it down, TikTok.
Sit back and buckle up because I'm about to drag the shit out of you.
You don't even have to, because people of color on this app drag us, make fun of us, hate speech us, and want us to be unalived. I'm sorry, I should feel bad for being born white.
The honest truth about why probably most Gen Z white people are racist is because black people treated us like shit for no reason. Y'all's millennial parents raised you to be racist to white people. And so you go out into the world treating white people like crap, and you're shocked to your freaking core when white people don't like you.
We're not shocked. We're not clutching our pearls when a white person is racist. Do you know why? Because while you pretend that black people were racist towards you, your great-great-grandmother, your great-grandmother, your grandfather, and your mother have always been racist to us. And the same thing goes for your husband that you literally met on racist forums in 4chan. You don't have to pretend as if there's a rational reason that you are racist. You've always been here. You've always been racist. Just be proud of it. Stop making excuses. I mean, unless you'd like to go over the long history of black people being racist towards white people in this country.
I grew up in white, rural, conservative America. I grew up with conservative parents. I respected cops. I believed that you asked cops for help and that they were there to help you and protect and serve. I deconstructed that when I became an emergency department nurse. They don't give a shit if you live or die. They don't give a shit if you lose your license. They don't care. They'd bring people in all the time, and they'd have them in handcuffs, or they'd cuff them to the bed. And I would say, please remove those cuffs. And they would say, not going to do that. And I would say, I'm not going to care for somebody in a restraint I don't have a key for. I'm not going to care for somebody in a restraint that hasn't been ordered by a physician and that I haven't tried everything else I can up until the point of restraining them. I'm not going to care for somebody in a restraint that's not an imminent danger to themselves or others. And I'm not going to care for somebody in a restraint that's improperly applied to a side rail. It's going to cause bodily injury. So take the cuff off. And they'll say, I'm not going to do that. And I would say, bring in your white shirt, please bring in your boss. We would have this back and forth. I have done that same conversation hundreds of times. I'm not exaggerating at all. Hundreds of times. They don't care. I've seen cops handcuff nurses and escort them out of emergency departments for not complying with what they wanted them to do when it was outside of the law. Those nurses have been awarded massive lawsuits. Cops don't care about you.
I am so sick and tired of this chip that you're carrying on your shoulder. We have bent over backwards. We have done backflips to make you feel equal. And yet, we've done everything. Perfect example is in the federal government. If you and I get the exact same rating for a position, do you know what? You get it. And do you know why? Because you're black. Is that fair? Is that fair to me?
There is a woeful lack of understanding, not only in the black community, but really in the white community, of why black people are in the condition that we're in and why all of the efforts that whites have made and government has made to try to solve the problem in the way that government sees fit has not really worked. And blacks are still crying out for more and more and more. And I realize that this is an irritant to white people because you really don't understand. And it's not really your fault. It's not really your fault. You just don't understand. But I think if you gave yourself a chance to hear what happened to these black people that makes them as they are, as an irritant to you and those who think you have done the best you could. And maybe you have, but I respectfully suggest to you that there's so much more that could be done, that should be done, and that must be done if America is to survive. Believe me.
White folks, the moment you stop doing the work to address your internalized racism, you become sleeper agents of white supremacy. Let's get into it. Y'all ever seen the movie Captain America and the Winter Soldier? There's a character named Bucky who is the Winter Soldier that I'm talking about. He is a deadly assassin who has been brainwashed. Doesn't even know it. He just has to hear the right words at the right time and then boom, he's assassinating. He is causing harm. This is very similar to how whiteness gets triggered in a lot of different situations. Y'all are socialized to see yourselves as the protagonists, as the heroes, as innocent, as the smartest and the most capable. And until you commit to doing the lifelong work of owning and deconstructing that racist socialization you've received, you're setting yourself up to just be one correction from a black, indigenous, or other person of color away from unleashing that latent racism on us. Sometimes literally like the Winter Soldier. Just one scenario away where you're given boundaries that offend you. Just one situation away where you are asked to be quiet or to step aside. Just one moment away where you are told that you should follow instead of lead. I see these examples come up nearly every single day in comment sections on this app. Even I, as a black man who teaches, coaches, and trains on anti-racism, even I have to do my work to unpack the anti-black socialization that I have received too. So when you as a white person communicate that you are not racist, you are revealing that you are dangerous and untrustworthy for black, indigenous, and other people of color. This is why you need to know.
The history of America is the history of rich white men telling not rich white people that their enemies are black and brown. It starts in the colonies of what would become the United States. Let's remember, during the colonial period, mid-1600s, there was no such thing as white people. I know some people who are now called white find that shocking, right? Because they think whiteness is real, right? But whiteness was created. Europeans didn't call themselves white. We didn't call ourselves white. We weren't all members of one big happy family. Are you kidding? Have you studied the history of Europe? The history of Europe was about killing each other. That's what we did in Europe. We just killed each other before we figured out there were other people to kill. We just killed each other, right? I mean, that was the history of Europe. The English hated the Irish, right? Northern Italians didn't even think that Southern Italians were Italians. The Germans hated everybody, and everybody hated their ass right back, right? There was no team called white, no race called white, but all of a sudden, in the middle of the 1600s, there was. Why? Why was it suddenly necessary to create this thing called the white race? Well, because rich people can count, that's why. And so rich folks looked around, the ones that owned all the land, you know, in the colonies, the colonial elite looked around and they realized something, that they were heavily outnumbered by African enslaved folks, by European indentured servants who were just one level above a slave, or other Europeans who weren't technically indentured servants, but they were still peasants, didn't have any money, didn't have any land, and they could do the math. They added it up and they were like, damn, we got to figure out a way to split these folks apart from one another or they're going to rise up and take our stuff, right? Because after a while, these black folks who were enslaved Africans and these quote-unquote white folks who were poor Europeans are going to figure out they're all getting played by these rich people, right? So ultimately, the rich figure out they got to come up with some way to get somebody in that group on their team. The easiest thing is to get the poor Europeans, right? Because at least they look like you. They sort of share some of the customs and the culture. So they all of a sudden create this thing called whiteness, and they say, now you're part of the club. Now we're going to let you testify in court, enter into contracts, vote, at least if you're a man, own a little bit of land, at least if you're a man, right? And we're going to get rid of indentured servitude. No more of that, because you're too good for that. And we're going to take the white men, now called white men, and put them on the slave patrol to keep black people in line. Give them a horse and a gun and a badge and make them feel big and powerful, right? They're still poor. They still don't have anything. They didn't pay the slave patrol well, right? Just exploited them, used them as a buffer between the elite and the other poor folks, particularly poor folks of color. And pretty soon the rebellions that occasionally happened where black and white got together to overthrow the elite, those stopped. because the divide and conquer had begun to work, right? You could turn people against each other by telling those poor white folks they got to keep these black people in line. And so that divide and conquer gets initiated in the colonies. Rich white men telling not rich white people that their enemies are black and brown. Fast forward to the Civil War era. And you have, I'm from the South, right? My people, the elite in my part of the country, right, actually announced that the reason they wanted to break away from the Union and possibly go to war with their brothers and sisters to the North was in order to maintain slavery and white supremacy. They said that at the time. We lie about it now. And we say it had nothing to do with that. But of course, at the time, they didn't have any shame about it, so they just said it openly. Right? The vice president of the Confederacy, Alexander Stephens, said that the cornerstone of the new government was the great truth that the Negro was not the equal of the white man. So that's the reason the Confederacy was formed and existed. But here's the trick. If I'm rich and I want to go to war to protect my ownership in other human beings, my property, but you're poor and you don't own any enslaved people, why the hell would you go fight to protect my stuff? Because I'm a rich person. I'm not going to fight. Rich people don't go to war. Right? Rich people get poor people to go to war for them, whether it's in 1860 or whether it's during the 1960s or whether it's today, right? Rich folks get doctors to write notes for them that say that they have heel spurs and that's why they can't go to Vietnam. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, you can Google that shit because he's sitting in the White House right now, right? Oh, I can't go fight. I have heel spurs. Send some poor kids to do that for me, please, right? So that's been a long-standing tradition. So the rich have to figure out a way to convince the poor to go fight for them. But that's a hard thing. That's like a hard sell, right? Like how the hell, why would you do that? Why would you go fight to protect my property rights when you don't own anything? The only way you would do it is if that rich person comes to you and says, hey, listen, you gotta go fight because we gotta maintain our way of life because if these people get free, they're gonna take your jobs. No, fool, they already got your job. That's how it works, right? Because if I'm white and I got to charge you $1 a day to work on the farm, but you can get a black person to do it for nothing because you own them, guess who got the job? Free got the job, right? So in a sense, poor white folks would have been better off joining with black folks to overthrow the slave system that would have raised the wage floor of all working people. But they got tricked by rich white men telling them that their enemies were black and brown. Fast forward to the 1930s. And you have white labor leaders. They're not even the elite, right? The labor leaders are not the elite, but they're the elite within the labor movement. And even they had fallen for it at this point. So they didn't want to integrate their unions. And they would say things like, well, we can't have black people and Mexicans and Chinese folks in our unions because if we do that, it's going to reduce the professionalism of our craft. We have to maintain the integrity of our profession. No, fool, you need more people in the damn union is what you need. And if you don't let those folks in, guess what happens when you go out on strike? Who is the boss going to use to replace you? They're going to replace you with the very same black and brown folks that you didn't want to work next to, right? And so at the end of and then you're going to blame them for taking your job rather than the white rich dude for giving it to them, right? Divide and conquer. Telling not rich white folks that their enemies are black and brown. And now we fast forward to the president. We got the president of the United States becoming president on the basis of that same rhetoric. Telling not rich white folks that the reason they don't have a job is because Mexicans took them.
Carney today sort of defending his statement when the illegal attack on Iran happened just kind of further proves my point about the propaganda and, you know, the way that we've been sort of conditioned and brainwashed in the world, but really white people specifically in colonized nations. And hear me out, bots and whatnots, because this is going to make you really triggered, but just follow it through to the end. Something that's really important that all of us need to do in this moment is to understand that there is no difference between the Iranian regime and the US regime and the regime of I. And you might think like this bitch is crazy, but hear me out, okay? Because the US post 9/11 murdered around, I think the totals are like 900,000 innocent civilians were killed in post 9/11 wars that never should have happened. Not to mention thousands of soldiers were killed and traumatized, many of whom are out there speaking right now. And we can go through the list of the amount of people that have died under the boot of US imperialism. It spans so much more than you could ever imagine. If you want to see who the biggest polluter in the world is, it's the US military. If you want to see the amount of money and the amount of arms and ammunitions that they sent to commit the GNP, where now the death toll's at like 600,000 plus women and children, like, the US is not innocent. They are not the good guys, and they never have been. We've just been conditioned to think that because they have white skin and we have all these like propaganda TV shows about the CIA and the FBI, we think that they're the good guys, but they're actually not. They are just as harmful as all other oppressive regimes. I don't even need to tell you what's going on in their country right now. These are not the actions or the behavior of a democratic society. It's all smoke and mirrors. So maybe the violence isn't as overt, though I would argue that it is to some extent. They are just as violent. They are just as insidious. And if we can't break through this truth as a society, we're going to keep ending up back here. We're going to keep ending up in this situation time and time and time again. So please, if this triggered you in any way, take a moment to sit with why and actually research how many people have died under the boot of US imperialism. Because we don't have much time to fight back. We don't. And if Canadians are sitting here thinking that we're not going to be next on the chopping block, you are fooling yourself. This is a moment for Carney to stand on his ground and move the world forward into this new world order. Why can't him and all the middle powers, some and many of whom who have nuclear powers, band together to take out the two single biggest threats to humanity? And the two biggest threats to humanity are the US and I. Period.
I don't hear white people say white people shit anymore. It's almost like a forgotten language. You never hear white people say, "How you like them apples?" It's just, clip that. Like if you were a pissed off white dude say, "Newsflash, pal." Oh, you're cooked. You're barking up the wrong tree, buddy. You're really busting my balls here. I don't remember the last person that said, "If I were keys, where would I be?" Kid a load of this guy. You know what?
You're on thin ice, buddy.
I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I swear to God, I don't hear that shit like I used to.
Thank you for watching Great Minds Blacks.